Look what I did today.
There we go. Good morning.
Well, I just feel like, oh, hang on just 1 second.
Well, I want to say, usually I tell you good morning, you tell me good morning, but we need to tell everybody else good morning. And thank you for being here, all the liberty-loving patriots out there that just want to be left alone by this tyrannical government. Thank you, all the Ropians. Thank you, Ropians out there, for joining us.
Ropians. Is that what they are? Ropians?
Well, yeah, that's our dedicated followers, the Ropians.
I actually kind of like that. There's something to that. I what is that? I endorse that.
Hey.
So what's up with you this morning?
Well, not too much. I'm not going to do big financial deal, but I do want to show you something real quick.
Okay.
Just tell me what you see here. This is out of Reuters. This from September 11th. Atlanta Fed's Bostic, who he's the Fed chair of the Atlanta Central Bank, violated trading rules. So here you have a guy that is head of one of the central banks here in the United States. He can inside trade. Nothing's going to happen to him. They're going to make him resign ultimately, but however much money he got away with doesn't matter. Now Martha Stewart, she's got to go to jail. If you or I did that, we'd have to go to jail, but not these guys. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we always keep the Fed, the big bad guys, up there. Just make sure we always stay informed about these guys, and the rules don't apply to them.
No. Well, I mean, because they own the bank, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he who has the gold makes the rules. Isn't that the saying?
Pretty much.
So yeah, there you go. So before we bring on our guest for this morning, why don't you want to talk about something briefly?
Yeah. We touched on the teacher in Edmond, Reagan Kalaki, who had the photo that he took with his son and his daughter, where he was kind of impersonating, or he wasn't inciting. He wasn't inciting violence. There's no violence being incited there. He's not actually suggesting that we attempt to assassinate the president or anything. So I don't know what the big deal is, but some people did become really offended with that. I hope you saw that was just a joke by me. But anyway, there was a guy that I know I'm very, very close to this guy. He took the original photo back from Reagan when he posted back in 2017. And so we've had all these stories. We've got these stories in Oklahoma, and we've got Oklahoma Watch, which I want to touch on Oklahoma Watch. But back in 2017, when my very good friend took this photo and was just beside him, this is a person that does not have kids in the public school system, but
Well, hold on just a second. This was an Instagram post. So Reagan Kalaki posted this to his Instagram page, and the person took a screenshot of it.
Yep, screenshotted
Right.
this photo. And at that time, they sent that photo into Edmond School Board and the state school board saying this is inappropriate. There's no need to have a teacher do this. Absolutely crickets, nothing from Edmond, from the state school board. So when the assassination attempt actually happened, it just refreshed their memory and just like, hey, I'm going to send that in again now that Ryan's in office. I'm going to send it back into Edmond. Still nothing from Edmond. Send in the Awareness report, which, the left is massively rallying behind Reagan. I'm sure they're just inundating the state school board with emails of love and praise and how great this guy is. I don't know a single person that likes this guy. I mean, I've heard about things from former students after the fact that's probably got some inappropriate behavior. I can't necessarily justify or talk about whatever all that stuff is without having, the person that's telling me that, completely validate all that. But I don't know anybody that likes this guy besides the crazy left. And that's their prerogative. He's their big champion. But ultimately, you've got the Oklahoma Watch people who are massively behind Reagan.
Well, they're very left. If you just read anything from their editorial page at all, the woman who's the editor is way left. I mean, you want to talk about, but people think we're far right. So, I don't know what any of these designations mean anymore, but she is not anybody that we would agree with on most things.
What I want to say about that Oklahoma Watch article that wound up being cited, I think in the Oklahoman, and K4 did a story on that, was Oklahoma Watch did. Okay. So my friend filed this report anonymously because they didn't want to get doxxed. They didn't want to get, they just want to say, hey, I think this is inappropriate. I'm a concerned citizen. I don't think my tax dollars need to be going towards things like this. So Oklahoma Watch took it upon themselves to file an open records request so they could go see and pinpoint who this person was. Well, they saw that it was filed anonymously, but they also there's a, when you turn in anything online, there's an IP address and metadata and stuff. So Oklahoma Watch got a hold of that. So they were going to track down from the IP address or, whatever metadata was available to them. They're going to track down who this person is so they could expose them. No doubt about that. They're not going to let you just be anonymous and talk bad about one of their heroes. So anyway, luckily my friend said, right at the last second before I did that, I literally just turned my VPN on to New York and filed that report. And as soon as he saw that article and just texted me, is like, you're not going to believe what I'm telling you here. So, but that's the links that the left will go to protect their own, to, you don't see them doing that for anybody else. You don't see them going to that kind of distance, but those are the kind of people we're dealing with here. And also just a suggestion to the state school board attorney, when they release open records requests, they need to redact that IP address information or any other kind of information. If it's an anonymous request sent in there, they need to redact any identifying information that can be used to track back to whoever it is, because you're literally going to stifle the whole system if you think you're turning in something anonymous and then they go do a report and track it back to you and then just barbecue you for the next year.
Yeah. I mean, it's either anonymous or it's not. And today, without a VPN, the chances of you being anonymous are pretty slim. And for Oklahoma Watch literally to go and try to get an open records request for anonymous sources, I think that just shows how. And the crazy thing is, I use quite a bit of Oklahoma Watch's stuff. They are very good about honing in on the people that nobody else wants to hone in on because they're Republican. So I at least kind of know what's going on there, and I'll watch them for that. But good Lord, they're lefty. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not even funny how lefty they are. But I just want to point out, because we've got to get Laurie on here. I want to point this out. Read this. Daughter of teacher targeted by Ryan Walters writes board about effect of online vitriol. Okay. Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, it's kind of like, well, I don't think, the board started it or anybody else. I kind of think your dad did when he made a really bad decision to play this. Look at me. I'm pretending like I'm stabbing Donald Trump. So let's just kind of go with that for a second and think to ourselves, why is it that the left always wants to bitch and complain about this vitriol that they say is coming from the right when they're the ones stomping around saying Donald Trump's a threat to democracy? Which, what is democracy? We don't even live in a democracy. We live in a republic.
Yeah.
He's a threat to democracy. He's this, he's that, he's the other 15th thing. And yet we're the ones that are creating vitriol.
Yeah. Well, let me take it one step further. Let's just turn the tables. Let's say if someone like a Ryan Walters, okay, let's say if Ryan Walters took a photo like that with his kids,
with Kamala Harris, put Kamala Harris in there instead of Donald Trump.
No matter what the time frame is, go back all the way to right when they became, 4 years ago. I guarantee you CPS would be at Ryan Walters' house. I guarantee you that.
There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. I mean, so it's this stupid double standard, and so many people buy into it, and we'll talk more about it later. But I do want to get Laurie on here because we've got a lot to talk to her about. And as we bring her on, I would like to share my screen really fast. And I don't know how many people saw this particular thing in the paper. But this was from USA Today. It was Oklahoma Town celebrates its A Christmas Story ties with a new 50-foot leg lamp statue. So here is the leg lamp, and we can show some more pictures of it here. Let's look at this picture, for example. I mean, I took my kids to Chickasha, and we've taken them there before because they have the most beautiful Christmas light display. I mean, you're looking literally up a lady's skirt. So I don't know. Let's bring in Laurie and see what she has to say about this, because I'm really curious, because she is a Chickasha resident. So good morning, Laurie Smith-Allen. How are you?
I am well. Thank you. How are you guys? Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no. We're just, I mean, this is a deal, isn't it?
It's a deal. I'm not sure who the dealers are, but this is a deal. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I mean, honestly, I'm not, that one you can't even see, and I'm not sure why. But just looking at some of the pictures on this page, I'm just curious. What are your thoughts?
Well, as an outsider, if this were just dropped in front of me and I would look at that, I would not immediately go, let's move my family here. This does not say family. This does not say rooted in, for me, the Jesus Christ, which is like the nuclear family here. And I would kind of wonder what people are thinking, if they think that is a good idea and a image for our young children and teens, anyone.
There's a picture of literally people underneath.
Yeah. So for some it might be funny, haha, let's go spend 12 minutes. But to invest the amount of money, and then the whole premise behind it is just something that more people than not are not behind. And then as you peel back the layers of this onion of all this story, there's more people than not that you would like to speak with, but they won't come forward.
So just out of curiosity, so you lived in Chickasha a long time, right? I mean, pretty much all your adult life, right?
26 plus years, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm a transplant, but my in-laws, family, everyone are all from here.
So what kind of got you on this track of thinking about, I mean, Chickasha has, like I said, I mean, we've been there. They have the most beautiful lights and it's all about Christmas. This doesn't seem like the same Christmas, but I don't know. I mean, just give me your thoughts there.
Well, it's not. That's kind of what piqued not just my interest, but this larger group. We started seeing some things change, and the thing that really got me off the bench was they were wanting to replace the Christmas angels, these wonderful angels, and we had these angels that would go up on the municipal lampposts, and they were lit, so it was like bringing more of the light of Christ. And this is the reason we have Christmas. So you have the Festival of Light, of which my husband's family were part of the steering committee and getting that even going, so we're very tied to that and keeping and honoring that Christmas message. And then you have this group that is wanting to remove the lights of downtown, the angel lights, and just wipe it away. So you go from this beautiful quintessential little town with Christmas lights and the twinkling at Christmas time, and when the cool weather comes in and the fog sets in or snows kind of coming down, you have literally this Christmas town, and it's sweet and it's family oriented, and they want to remove those angels and put up lampshades that match this leg lamp. So that's kind of
really wait.
Yeah.
Wow.
They want to take the angels off the posts and put up the lampshade that is the same as on the lamp.
Exactly, a mirror image that is not even 100 yards away. And yet the story was, well, it's just a shade. You have these lampshades in your living room. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a shade. And so the whole conversation, that whole story was not, it wasn't going over. So a few of us, we kind of gathered and created a plan. We wanted to go forward and just come as citizens and plead to the city council, please don't do this. And there are several reasons why. The first and foremost was, this is not the Christmas message. This is not the family message that we want for our town.
Wait, Laurie, fishnet stockings? That's what I always think of when I think of Christmas.
Of course. And just, and so pause what we were headed. Go there for a second on the fishnet stockings. Think about, we're just doing a lampshade. Well, when you decorate for Christmas, don't you make sure you have your lampshade box out?
Yeah.
On your tree, don't you have lampshades everywhere? Maybe you do a lampshade instead of a tree. Isn't that that's Christmas? Okay.
I'm laughing, but it's actually not funny. I'm not trying to be like, it's one of those things where you kind of have to laugh at it because it's almost sort of just ridiculous, like comical.
Unless you're so bought in that you really think this is a good idea and this is where you want this story to go. So if your ending of the story is they all live happily ever after and looked at lampshades, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, great. But to many of us, we were like, no, we're not following. We're not tracking with this. We don't believe this is a good idea. So we went to the city council and pleaded for them to not do this. One, it's not Christmas. Two, the nostalgia completely lost. Like, why are we doing this? Three, those are municipal poles. This clearly is a mirror image of the leg lamp, which already had its issues of no permission, funding, all kinds of just murky things that are going on regarding that whole installation. And yet now you want to put lampshades on the municipal poles, which puts us at risk as a town. And nothing about that says, well, welcome to Chickasha, this is Christmas town. Absolutely nothing, unless you're a minutia of the population that happens to love, enjoy, follow, whatever, the movie, A Christmas Story, which is, hysterical if you just take it at face value. It's a, little sliver of pop culture. Right. But why are we fashioning a town around that complete idea for Christmas?
Well, let me ask you this. So you talked about municipal polls. So anything that's a city item is taxpayer funded. So that's an issue. Is the leg lamp taxpayer funded? So what's the difference between them there?
Okay, so what we through to answer your question, there's several layers because what we have found out through open records requests, and we had to fight tooth and nail to get open records requests for taxpayer money. So anybody listening out there, if you are preparing for open records, if you are wanting to know where your tax dollars go, be prepared for a fight. So that's the first thing. But they are, when they're tax dollars, as we have heard from the Attorney General's office, whether it's 5 million, 500, 5 cents, those are always taxpayer dollars. So just remember that. The municipal poles are owned by the municipality. So that was a caution at the city council meeting that we had one of our city councilmen, brilliant city councilman, who actually is for the people. Councilman Gertis said, what about the copyright? What about the infringement? Like we have a real obligation here to honor that patent. So that was one issue because that's a taxpayer issue. So to go back to part of your question on the leg lamp, through these open records that we found, yes, taxpayer money was used for that item. So the last receipt, the last total that we've been able to come up with is a $1.4 million installation, partially private funded, under the guise that this was to be a downtown park area. That was charted around for at least a year. And people who were to be donors or asked to be donors, you had this, beautiful, slick, colorful portfolio to be a downtown park area. Well, that morphed into a leg lamp. So those donors who donated, that's their money. It doesn't matter. I mean, if that's what was done and they were fine with it, okay, that's fine. But taxpayer money went to that. So think about a town, very small rural town, as our town is, and many other towns are out there. And that's just where other people might identify. You're free and reduced, which means you have a very low income socioeconomic population that depends on your lunch programs in your school districts. So we are a free and reduced economy, if you will. You have taxpayer money that we have to pay regardless of whether we want to or not. That is captured through a hotel motel tax, and they made the decision to use that money on a leg lamp. And we know at least $25,000, if not more, were used because some of those open records indicated that that was used for their personal agenda of a leg lamp.
And you only found that out after the fact?
We found it. We suspected because the pushback at the city council meeting, when we spoke out against the lampshades, it caused this ferocious, just this uprising of a particular group to come out, just teeth gnashing. So ferocious that on my way home from the city council meeting, I'm in the car because my husband had gone too. There was many people at this meeting. I was not the only one to come and talk about the light of Christ and Christmas and the town and why are we taking down the angels. And, there are other ways that this story, this movie can be represented, but please don't do this to the municipality as a whole and put us at risk, right? So on our way home, back up in the meeting, in the city council meeting, as soon as I get through speaking, because it's live streamed, I get a text from one of these gentlemen that says, "Why are you going against my idea? Why are you going?" And I texted back and I was like, "What do you mean your idea?" We really were kind of putting this together in real time as things started, rolling a little bit faster. And so then I realized who one of the people was behind it, who is exactly one of the gentlemen who is the face of the leg lamp, claims ownership of the leg lamp, has had involvement with the leg lamp before. And so, I kind of realized one of the people that is behind all of this. Keep in mind, not one of the city councilmen is also texting me in the meeting. So I kind of see who's behind the push for this. And so on the way home, this particular gentleman calls me. And I'm with my husband driving home. And so I kind of look at him and I said, "Well, look who's calling." And he said, "Go ahead and answer it." So I answer it. I put it on speaker and I said, "Hello." The screaming started.
Wow.
This grown man is screaming at the top of his lungs about us going against his idea, about us coming out against what is the growth of Chickasha, the shades on the lampposts, how they've already been paid for, they've already been ordered. And I, kind of realized this is way bigger than just the lights on the municipal posts. So it really just went, oh my goodness, this is a bigger issue. That call right there is what prompted the entire forward motion to go forward with open records requests, speaking before the city council numerous times, digging and digging and digging, getting doors slammed in our face, windows shuttered when we were simply trying to follow taxpayer dollars and what is being done to our town. And these are by unelected officials, appointed officials, unelected officials, but there's so many layers and so many seats that are duplicated that it is very hard to untangle all of this just ball of yarn of chaos and tax dollars everywhere. It's very hard to follow.
Well, so I'm gonna Michael and I both get text messages and people reach out to us from different cities in Oklahoma and tell us that they are having issues with their economic development groups. Yes. and other things. And one of them is Bartlesville, which is, I don't know, probably about the same size, I would think, as Chickasha, probably somewhere fairly close. And they have had, well, we don't need to go into what's going on in Bartlesville, but what we see, I mean, both Michael and I and so many people who tune into our program, what we're seeing is city councils not listening to the people who pay taxes. And the crazy thing is, as well as we know, Laurie, what happens if you don't pay your taxes?
You go on notice. You have to pay your taxes. You don't have a choice.
No, or they'll come take your stuff.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, go on notice, but that means they will come and seize and take their money. And that's
yeah,
been with the Attorney General's office is we do not have the luxury of saying, do what you want, just let me out of it. No, we have to pay those taxes regardless. So
right.
that's why that message of the taxpayer dollar is so important for the taxpayer to understand you do have a dog in this fight. And when you ask about it, when the red flags start going off and you're denied information and that is your money, and you hear the words come back to you, that's not your money. What are you talking about? You know, there is a problem, either purposeful issue that is being covered up or the naivete or the ignorance that they don't know that taxpayer money, that they have an obligation for accountability and transparency.
So let's kind of back up and move forward. So, how did this whole lampshade come into your purview? Did you see something in a local magazine? I mean, were they talking about this? How did this whole thing come to the forefront of your thought?
So it came out in public at City Council. So as we were
Okay.
hearing the angels were coming down, and pleading with them not to take them down, we had already, had conversations, and they had gone forward at City Council, when we knew that this lampshade was an impending issue. The issue that we understood was lampshade versus angels.
Yeah.
So that was what the layman was understanding. In going through the emails that we were able to finally get, we realized they never thought they had to come before the city council. This was a little speed bump in their plan. That is literally what we read. It never should have come before the public. They didn't need to get involved. This was something that they know better and that they should be making the decision. The founding fathers, they call themselves the group, the fathers of town, know where we need to go. And the little people, the little ladies is actually what we were called in the newspaper, were just causing problems and an issue. And we should have never known about it at all.
Okay, so back up even again one more time. So there are two factors that are going on here, and I want to make sure people understand what they are. You have your city council, and every city has one. It's statutory in Oklahoma. So you have your city council, but you also have an economic development arm of that city council. And they're two different things. So the city council, you can, you absolutely, as a citizen, if you want information from them, all of the rights are in your corner. You get to ask them for open records. They have to be transparent. They're using taxpayer dollars. But then on the other hand, you have this economic development arm, and that's kind of a different thing, isn't it? Is it?
Correct. So every town can set up how they want. So for this particular municipality, you have your city council. And I will say we have, and even the last term, who this is carried forward in a little bit different fashion, but the last term, it's our city council before seats turned over, we had and continue to have some that are fabulous sitting city council people that were also on last term. Some of them fought for the right thing, the rights of Warner Brothers, the protection of the patent, the image of the town. So city council is the tier at the top. And I will say we have some fabulous city council representatives. Then what's interesting about Chickasha is then you go to what's called the Chickasha Industrial Authority. And that's where this money is passed. This particular hotel motel tax is passed to the CIA. That's what it is, called.
It is not.
It is. So the CIA then
Something
and
funny
signs with the Economic Development Council. So that's where the wash comes in. And those are not even our words, those are the authorities' words. The wash comes in when the city council passes that money by design for economic development. It does not say it has to go to the Economic Development Council. That originally was created as an LLC. It is no longer now an LLC. So they're individual contractors. So Chickasha City Council, CIA passes the money to EDC. So in that wash, the council, the city manager has said, we can't create oversight. We don't have any transparency. That's now the CIA. So when you look at the players in the seats of the CIA, you have a few council. The CIA also has people that are sitting as current execs or on the EDC board. So the money's passed to the CIA. The CIA votes to pass it to the EDC. And so you have people accepting the money and voting to give their money to themselves.
Yeah.
And the transparency problem came in when we were trying to get open records from the EDC. They got an attorney. They're funded with taxpayer money. They got an attorney to send me a letter that says they do not have to tell me, the taxpayer, the little lady, where the money is going. So my money was used to get an attorney to tell me, you don't get to know.
That sounds like school boards, doesn't it, Michael?
Exactly.
That's exactly what it sounds like. So basically, at this point in time, we, the taxpayers, just get the big screw, don't we?
I wasn't allowed to know. And it says they would not honor my open records request,
Wow.
nor would they entertain it for any further requests. So the group got together and said, well, hang on there. The money's coming into them. They vote to give themselves the money, and then they vote what they want to do with the money. And then they say, well, that's not your money anymore. It was given to us. Okay, well, that's one side of the conversation. I knew, okay, well, every conversation has at least two sides, right? Well, then I went after the other side of the conversation because the CIA is accountable to the public. So I got an open records request for the CIA and got at least the other side of the conversation because, as you know, conversations go back and forth. Well, when you are also a public body, you have what's called the Open Meetings Act. Talk about meetings violations, rolling meetings, conversations, flying back and forth. But I did get a lot of the conversations, which gave us, not the entire puzzle, but when you put a puzzle together, you start looking for the edge pieces, right? And then you start filling in the middle. And pretty soon you see the picture. You just don't have all the tiny little threads that might, shore it up real tight. So we were able to go through the 6,880 plus documents, and I got them in hard copy form. So I'm talking boxes, like reams of paper that we got together over the course of about 6 weeks, put into stacks, put into organizational piles. We're able to put together full conversations, text messages, photos. Sorry for the lawn work going on outside. Full conversations, and see what was going on as far as their intention, their conversations, money, funding, legal questions, dealing with the public, dealing with the little ladies, other people in town that they were just, it was heartbreaking the way they were speaking about people in our town and people that they've called friends, people I've had in my home, people that I've had in my backyard that I thought were friends, to see the real conversation and disrespect that they had for the people that they live with.
And this is the Chickasha Industrial Authority. Is that where these records are coming from?
Correct.
Or is this the city? Is this the city itself, or is this other entity?
The city had to get them from the industrial authority because the city council has oversight over the industrial authority. The city said, we don't have it over the EDC. Sorry, can't do anything. So that's the middleman, if you will, was the CIA. But because of the duplicity, and some of those CIA actually sat and currently sit on the EDC, then I could get the conversation through that avenue, which ultimately gave us what we needed to prove all of a sudden what was appearing before our eyes through the EDC.
Yeah. But just to clarify that the CIA is not part of the municipality. They're their own.
No. It is the Chickasha Industrial Authority, because it is a tier of appointed, and you have city council that sit on it, but you then also have appointed business leaders that are on it as well to, for further development. And in original intentions, it's all well and good. We truly believe it's through the loopholes, it's through some very intelligent, strategic, financial minds that have seen the way to capture these taxpayer dollars and use them for whatever they want. And I will give it, I mean, they're very brilliant people. They're leaders of companies, they're leaders of banks, they're leaders of different industry. And it's, in theory, I would have loved to maybe have used it for good, but they had other intentions. We have a university. There's lots of schools around us. You can literally follow the paper trail, minutes of meetings, conversations, texts, photos, some of them pretty vulgar, pretty graphic, others pretty heartbreaking, of people that you rub shoulder to shoulder with, and they're just taking your money and think nothing of you and doing whatever they want with it.
Wow.
So what have you been doing about this? Because it does, I think the overarching umbrella problem that we're seeing all over everywhere anymore is that we elect people to positions that we expect that they in turn are going to protect our liberty, protect our towns, protect the things that are important to our families, that kind of thing. And yet what ends up happening is they end up using them somehow for their own personal gain or against the wishes of the majority of the people in the town. It's like Bartlesville and the public drag queen shows, which the city council was all behind. What do you do? I mean, you've asked for the records. And you go to the meetings, you just have a whole bunch of people that go to the meetings every time and just kind of, hey, we need to make this stop. I mean, the leg lamp is already up. I mean, what do you do?
So I would love to say that we have a bunch of people still. We do. But as things start becoming public and you start seeing who is involved, the public numbers that are willing to admit it dwindle. The people who will admit it behind closed doors, the people that are willing to admit it, if you're in, quiet conversations, it is not. It has grown exponentially.
People who want to push back against this whole thing.
Right.
Okay.
Because they might do business deals with them and they don't want to, they don't want to affect their bottom dollar. So they're like, yes, we're behind you guys, but we're not going to say anything. Sorry, we can't say anything anymore, because they don't want to lose maybe their position in society. Maybe they want to, keep those personal contracts, this self-enrichment. We've got to do certain things and benefit ourselves versus standing up for, what's right and wrong, whether it's someone's property or not. Doesn't matter. If they want to take it, they're going to take it. And so this is just one issue with Warner Brothers. That whole thing was originally pawned off as there was some attachment and some story that wove Chickasha into the historic lore of the leg lamp. And that turned out to be a complete lie. So you sell enough lies to the public and you cover it up enough, then you make people think, oh, well, this is good for our town. Yeah, we need help. Oh, this will be a windfall. This will bring tourism. Oh, we're connected. So time after time after time, it's proven a lie. It's proven a falsehood. There's legal letters that dismiss the story that they've gone down. They've tried to get permissions. They've tried to pawn it off as an art, art liberty. Like we can hide under this veil of educational liberty. Time after time, even there's a letter that we uncovered that we have that even the former attorney general's office said no, it doesn't fall as educational, and it's not an art liberty type of installation. So no. Warner Brothers sent a letter. No, it's protected. There's a patent. Stop. Continue to go on. So you talk about the people behind it. Then some people are like, oh, it's fun, it's funky, if it'll save the town. Okay, but for what? I mean, if it's ill-gotten, what good is going to come from that? Then you learn that taxpayer money went into it. The same city council meeting that we came forward fighting for the Angels, we had 3 people come forward that needed help with medication. Someone's roof is caving in, and you've got $25,000 in some 40-foot leg lamp. How many people could that have helped? Because that leg lamp, at the last reporting of sales tax dollars, which was reported publicly on the radio, are down. Does that tell you that was a good decision? Is that a good investment? Has that been a good ROI? Or is that just your personal investment because you want your name and your legacy? So, these are people making decisions. The majority of them are not elected. Some of them now are, because they are now in office and they have these people behind them. Because you got to think about employers. You've got to think about who holds your mortgage. You've got to think about who you're connected to in town. So going against something when you find something is wrong and the red flags are glaring, but you just have this intuition, you have this moral compass, just in this download that says, stay on track, be obedient, do the right thing. Things are wrong here. This is not the message of a town that's going to grow and be strong and support families. And, this whole quintessential vintage, beautiful little town is no longer Christmas.
Well, you still do the Christmas displays in December, right? The Christmas lights.
The Festival of Light is phenomenal. It is beautiful. It is so well organized. It is something that Chickasha is very, very proud of. And so that is something that, yes, we hang on to that. It's this little faction that is, keeps trying to develop this, themed, I guess Warner Brothers type of backlot that no one has permission for, and doesn't seem to be, pulling off the success story as you would think in media. But then also keep in mind, and no respect to media people, but there are stories that you feed because you want that particular outcome and story ending. So you can buy, you can kind of buy the story.
So I do know in several different instances, and so I'm going to assume, because I don't know enough about the story to be able to comment directly, but I know in other towns that we've had these issues with. Well, for example, our friend Julianne Romanello, who's a regular on our show, comes on, and one of the days that she talked to us about what she calls the grift of economic development, because there's so much that's going into this economic development that's actually pushing us down the road toward sustainable development and all the kind of WEF, World Economic Forum, garbage that we kind of laugh at behind the scenes and go, yeah, right, that's kind of stupid. But then you have a two-pronged thing, which is that, but then also there are people in towns who benefit when they do things like this because they own a construction company and they can get tax dollars from utilizing their construction company to put up, or people who own land in the town who then can get the town to buy this land if they push this particular economic thing, and then they make money because the town's buying their land. So I think part of the reason why, if you're watching and you're not quite understanding where we're going with this, if taxpayer dollars are going into the city, then those taxpayer dollars should benefit virtually everybody in the city. It should benefit the city. It shouldn't benefit individuals over what's best for the entire town. And I think, I can't say exactly in your case, but I can say exactly in numerous cases that we've heard about, that's kind of what's going on. Do you feel like, was that kind of your intuition of what was happening there in the first place, that there were people benefiting from tax dollars instead of what was going, what was meant to help the whole town?
That is what we discovered. I would love to say my intuition was that keen and dialed in, but it wasn't until we had proof of exactly that, of personal contracts and self-enrichment and private LLCs and private foundations.
Yeah.
And so then once that money is given, and again, you vote to give yourself, you take the money, and then you vote to give yourself money. And then that money can be then voted on to go to a private company. So when you know how to play this grift, if you will, and you know to create the LLCs, which, if for anyone listening, Secretary of State also gives you the registered agents. We had deep divers that would go in and look at the registered agents and look at all these emails and try to decipher and pull out who the people were, track them back to members of the EDC, and then they were getting contracts. These are people that hold positions at other places. These are positions that hold high positions at banks that are a for-profit entity, and that's a no-no if you are an officer or you are an owner or you are in a bank. There are specific rules against that. So when you track who the registered agents are of foundations, and sometimes these are tricky because they can be very private, but when you track those type of things and you start getting red flags and you can't have that information, and we don't have to tell you that stuff, on the right track. So my intuition, when I started receiving those messages of the first attorney's letter, the first harassing phone call, the other threatening phone calls that I got, a handwritten letter telling me I've stepped out of line and I better get back in line because I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. That told me, that part of my intuition said, you must really be getting over the target because this is really irritating and upsetting some people. And as we started looking more through the emails, the conversations, the state auditor's office, Cindy Bird's office, has been phenomenal because we were put with an investigative auditor who started really picking through the pieces and the layers of who sits in this office and who sits in this position, who is their company, how many contracts. I mean, I'm still fighting for records right now that I don't have. You would think that this Economic Development Council would keep records of who their recipients are, who they award contracts to, and who they deny.
They don't have to?
Well, I'm still working on that. I've filed it with the city because now some of our new city council people have put in their contract, if you will, with the EDC, that it does have to come back to them so they can see all this stuff. But after over 6+ months, we're going on 7 months, the city has sent me a letter of they are working to get that, but the Economic Development Council does not have that. So I cannot see exactly what percentage of all these contracts back to 2015, which are funded through taxpayer grants, the majority of them, they still don't have that. And I'd love to say I can give you that. Now we have partial documentation, which led me to get more documentation. But evidently they are records keeping process is different than what we would think you would have to have for taxpayer funds. So the city auditor's office, or the state auditor's office, has been phenomenal in the investigator that we've been working with to kind of drill down to the very people who sit in these seats, where the money's gone, who the registered agents are. And that is kind of what prompted almost 2 years ago the involvement in the questions and start to work with the Attorney General's office. I'd love to say it was my intuition, but there are some brilliant people in this group that I am in, and a lot of their questions, because they're multifaceted industries that they represent, they know what's going on. So someone knows what's going on, whether it's, all kinds of industry, and we know the questions to ask. And so through the authorities, they have been able to drill down exactly the grift that's going on.
I know, at least I think I remember when I was mayor in Luther, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that a town can choose their auditor. It's statutory obligation for every town to conduct a yearly audit. So every town has to do it in Oklahoma. They have to conduct an audit. But I believe that the town gets to choose their auditor. Is that not the case?
I do believe that's still correct. I do know, because one of our group happens to be a CPA, and he follows the audits. And until recently, Chickasha was, I think, over 3 years behind in filing their audits. I think now one is caught up. So some of it,
my gosh.
but some of it is filed, it's in the rears. And so I do believe it's a little bit better right now. But when I called and started first working with the state auditor's department, just as an inquiry, just the regular, hey, am I out of my mind? This is what we're kind of seeing. Immediately, she said, you need to speak with our director. The director said, you need an investigator. We see enough in this. And so to get to your point is the audit at that point was not even current. And that's what kind of created a red flag. Like, oh, they haven't filed an audit. Like, this is very behind. So this is just one little issue that I think a lot of rural towns have. But when you have this one little vein of taxpayer money that can't be, won't be, don't have to account for it, I encourage people to start asking some questions. So you can pick your auditor, but are you current or not?
But part of the reason why I made that point is that for some time, the auditor in Luther was picked by the people who didn't really want an audit, and they weren't getting good audits. Do you follow what I'm saying? So it actually took, a whole blow up of the board to get people in there who were going to say, no, we actually need an audit. Let's find a good auditor. Let's, get, and of course, there were all these problems, but I think several things.
What's interesting, this is a comment that was told to me a couple of years ago. We have a company in town that is fantastic, CPA, wonderful. They do the schools, and they are phenomenal, and they are very, very, very good, very detailed. What you would really want when you are truly wanting to be transparent and accountable, right? So it was told to me when we were trying to follow this audit conversation, that company refused to do the cities anymore.
Wow.
And I'll just leave it at that. That is what a CPA in town told me.
Oh my goodness. Well, because we're coming up on an hour. So let's go and kind of wind back so that the people who are on this morning live, and it's interesting because we have a lot of people on X today. And you can usually, if you watch it on Facebook or something like that, you actually have to log in. So it's interesting. You don't necessarily have to do that on X, and we have a lot of people on there this morning. So there are obviously people who are interested in this issue who may or may not want to be found out. And, maybe they don't want, there is an issue which you brought up, which is people don't want to say anything because they don't want it to come back on them. They don't want to be told, hey, you went against me, I can't help you with this, or, we're going to renege on your contract with that. Or so there are a lot of people that won't stand up because they just don't feel like it's in their economic benefit to do so. They could actually be harmed by doing that.
Or they realize that if they say something, it puts friendships, maybe opposite sides of a line that you never knew was there.
Yeah.
So start asking questions, be prepared for what you're also either knowing or unknowingly willing to lose.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a good point. So what do you suggest for people who want to kind of keep their city council in check? What do you suggest to them? Because you started all of this off, you and some other little ladies started all of this investigation off on your own. What could you tell other people to do?
I mean, we hear all the time, stay informed, go to your meetings, speak out. But I want to really kind of hammer that home. Unless you know what's going on, unless you really pay attention, there's a lot of language that's created on purpose. And a lot of people don't pay attention, don't understand, or it's a lot of, legal terminology or industrial terminology or municipal terminology. Just ask questions. Just slow the process down. Ask them, I don't understand this. Would you explain it to me? Go to see your city managers. That is where we learned a lot. And we learned who was really running things. Is my husband and I went and had a face-to-face conversation with the city manager because we couldn't understand. He was brand new in town, brand new in this position. What were his views going forward? Were we going to get any hope for kind of righting the ship? And that's when we realized, and we're specifically told, hey, these are powerful people. I can't really go against them. So we realized, okay, so you're not really able to even do your job because a lot of these people are told what to do. So you have people that are put into position, put into appointed offices, even installed as elected officials, but behind them is a bigger push. You have to be willing to ask tough questions and do research, follow the paperwork, kind of see what's going on. But if you will just ask questions about your tax dollars, and if you're told you can't know, there are people. Call the state auditor's office. Go ask them, how do I follow this? Call the Attorney General's office. There's a fabulous Attorney General by the name of Anthony Sykes, and he is specifically tasked with Open Meetings Act violations. You can come across a lot of things by those that don't follow Open Meetings Act. If they say they don't have to, then find out either they do or they don't. But there are some measures and some tools that the taxpayer has. And when you start asking questions, they should readily say, sure, what do you want? Yes, it's a pain. I get that. But if you're told, no, you can't, and they file letters, and then you have legal things happen, and you start having threats happening, and you have these strange things that start happening to you, then as many people in this group have said, you must be over a target that's making them really, really nervous. And when you have that validated by the authorities, and the authorities say, here's offices you should contact, here's what we recommend, it's being watched statewide, this is going on in a lot of little towns, these rogue groups are out there, it's on the Attorney General's radar, people are very nervous, then you kind of realize, okay, I'm not losing my mind, I'm not out to get anyone, I'm not crazy here. We are not trying to impede progress or stop our town from growing. We just feel like there's an ethical way to do it. And it seems like this taking other people's property and infringing on their copyright and their patents and creating some leg lamp, city doesn't seem to be the right thing to do, and now it doesn't seem to be working, so we're on to the next best thing. It's always about a glitter and distraction. So if something's real shiny and sounds great over here, you better watch what's being done over here.
Yeah. Well, and if I can make a real quick comment about this is specifically for all those people that may have reservations, that maybe they don't like it, but they don't want to come, they don't want to hurt a relationship or this or that. You're going to lose either way. These people are going to take your money. They're going to spend it on something like this leg lamp, whether you say something or not. If you don't say something, it makes it even easier for them to go ahead and do these things. And this isn't like an isolated incident. So the leg lamp has now led to these lampshades, which is going to lead to something else, which is going to lead to bringing in condominiums and apartments all through your downtown or whatever. I mean, it's all part of an economic development plan that literally kills the old school Christian moral value small town system that's in every one of these towns, on purpose. And I'll tell you, Laurie, I personally know one of the engineers that worked on that leg lamp project, and he was so happy. He was so excited. He goes, this is going to bring so much, this is going to bring so much money down to Chickasha. They're going to be able to do this and this and this, and they're going to, they're going to be able to build all these apartments around there. So all these people can come in from all over the place and spend money. I'm like, okay, yeah, right. But that's how these people think, and right. This is a good friend of mine, but, I'm like, hey, that has nothing to do with the culture of a small town. Bringing in something like that has nothing to do with the culture of that town, where it's been and where it's going. I said, it's absolutely ridiculous, but that's how these economic development people think. I mean, they're literally just fast forward, build and do as much, spend as much money. So if you're worried about hurting a relationship, it doesn't matter. They're going to hurt you by doing this stuff, whether you want them to or not.
So
well,
that's a conditional relationship. You're thinking that you have this friendship and this, really bond with a lot of your very small community when you were only part of the plan. So when you start going against the plan, you kind of realize there was never really a real relationship there. It was just a conditional convenience you thought was a relationship.
Well, and I think it's important to mention too, this is when we talked to Julianne about the grift of economic development. One of the things that she said is what you mentioned, Michael, which is the whole basis really is to change the town, change the way the town, you're trying to pull them from a more moral perspective to a less moral perspective so that the people in this town are willing to eventually buy into developments and other things that may not be what the town originally was. So that's one of the things that the World Economic Forum has talked about with economic development like this. I do want to mention something also too. You have a city manager in Chickasha, and in Oklahoma, we have several different organizations for small towns. One's the city manager, one's the strong mayor, where a mayor is actually elected, like we have in Oklahoma City. And then another one is the town of Luther, where I was elected by my board to serve as the mayor. There isn't really a mayor. It's just one of the city councilmen who are elected to serve as the mayor. But I think it's important to point out that in your case, Edmond is another one that has a city manager. How does the city manager isn't elected? The city manager is hired by the municipal board. So you elect the people on the municipal board. The board hires the city manager. What is that like, Michael? Schools, public schools.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You hire the person for the public school seat, and then the public school seat, the people on the board then hire the superintendent. So if you think in some reaches of your mind that a municipal election is not important, you're a moron. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know how better to say it. You're a moron. You have got to understand that all politics is local. I mean, it's not just a saying, it's an absolute fact. What you need to preserve is what's under your feet. And what's under your feet is located in your city or town. There are people in Oklahoma who live in unincorporated areas, and I'm not talking about them, but I'm talking about people who live in a city or township. Where you need to focus is what's under your feet. And you can't focus on that until you know who your city council members are and you're active in your city council and you go to the meetings and you make sure that the people who are on those city council, in those city council positions, are wanting to serve you, not serving the WEF, not serving this new model of changing a city's basic morals and values into something that is going to be better for the WEF type model later on.
The 15-minute city is something, and the track. Anytime you're in and out of town, if you're in Chickasha, you're tracked.
Yep, it's a bad it's a bad deal.
Well, some are very proud of it, and people need to study up. This is happening in rural America, and your tax dollars are funding it. So if you don't like it, learn about what it is and at least start asking questions. At least start informing yourself so you're aware of it, because the scariest part of this is all of a sudden you look up and you realize that you haven't been paying attention and things happen that are sometimes already so far ahead you can't stop it. It's a very slippery slope. So start paying attention. I don't care if you're 15 or 95, everyone should be paying attention.
Well, Laurie, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this. And more even than that, I'm even going to go further than that and say thank you for having a backbone and some chutzpah to stand up against this, because I live in a small town. I know what it's like to live in a small town. You have to be, I mean, you can get beaten with rocks. I mean, it can be really tough. So what you're doing, I don't think people really understand, is a huge thing, and you should be lauded for just your, willingness to take on people that can make your life miserable.
But I am not the only one. It has been really interesting. I have really found out who true friends are. And that's very cliche to say, but there's some really, really true friends that have come up and said, yeah, this is tough, but we're doing the right thing and we're going to keep going forward. And some of these people are in positions that they, that it could be very vulnerable for them too. But it is amazing what has come across even outside of our town, outside of even Oklahoma City, the state of Oklahoma. And to know when you speak with the authorities that this is something that has gotten the attention of different leaders and those people who are capable of making decisions from across the.
Oh
no.
Her internet might have went out.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, anyway, you know what I want to say? I know Laurie was talking about how, when she went to speak, she immediately started getting text messages, even while she was speaking, from these guys up there. And then the phone call, right afterwards. And how many times, Jenny, I mean, I can't say how many times.
Threatening phone call.
How many times myself talking to other school board members all around the state that call me and are like, hey, they're literally telling me I can't vote no on something. Otherwise, I'm going to put our school district unity in jeopardy. I mean, where, they talk about that kind of stuff all the time. And it's just so funny that Laurie brought that up also, that she's literally getting these messages as she's talking, or leaving the city council meeting. It's just one and the same. All these people.
Well, I again, I was being very sincere when I was talking about the fact that she should be lauded for standing up, because this is, especially in a small town, this is not an easy thing to do. There's just absolutely the idea of standing up against friends and family members and people. There she came back. What happened? We lost you. Are you there? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yes,
We can hear
can't
you.
hear. Okay. So it's just, so again, thank you so much for, being with us today and for standing up in your small town and giving people an idea of what they can do to follow your model. So thanks again for being with us, Laurie. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know if she can hear us.
I don't know either. Uh-oh. Well, we'll wave goodbye. Bye, Laurie. And we'll talk to her more later. But what she's done is important. Well, I'll clip out that section where she talked about what it was that she had done, because I think everybody needs to know that, because this is people, again, they don't appreciate the fact that what's under their feet is the part they've got to save first. They've got to pay attention to first. We're going to have Sandra Trewick with us on Friday, and she's going to come in and talk about this new transmission corridor that part of the Green New Deal, paid for by private dollars, but that are paid for by public dollars that are being billions of which are being printed by the Obama it's all the same administration on the Green New Deal thing. And how do we stop that? By doing what Laurie did. I mean, get involved. You've got to go to your city council, because the city council and your county commissioners and the corporation commission are all people that are going to be involved in all of these things that are upcoming. And if you just decide that, you're in a Netflix and chill, then you're, like Laurie said, you're going to wake up in a very different town, and it's going to be too late to do anything. So,
I hope, I haven't even seen that show, The Christmas Story, for probably like 25 or 30 years, but just after thinking about this with Laurie, just thinking back, I think the dad won that lamp in a contest or something. And he was so excited. And I remember the youngest brother like ogling the lamp, and the mom, the mom knew that lamp wasn't right.
Yes.
The mom knew something was wrong. Remember when the lamp got broken, and he was going crazy. It reminded me of like the guy yelling at Laurie, "What are you doing? You're hurting my plan." It's the exact same thing. But ultimately, didn't that lamp get thrown out at the end of the show? Didn't they throw that lamp out?
Well, she broke it on purpose. And it was so funny, because there was a section where the guy who wrote the book, was talking, and he said he called it electric sex, because it's a fishnet. I mean, it's got fishnet stockings on, and you can look, and her skirt is a lampshade. So you're looking up her skirt, and you're right. The mom didn't like it. It wasn't family oriented. It wasn't something she wanted in the family room.
Yeah.
So it just somehow accidentally got broken. And I think that's, where the people in Chickasha and in all these other towns where they've got goofy stuff going on that, they're going to have to tackle. That's what they're going to have to do, is break the lamp.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. Let's in Chickasha, let's get some real people on that city council, and let's break that lamp. Let's get it taken down. I mean, it doesn't have to stay there. It didn't have to be there. It wasn't part of that town. I say take it down.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we end up for today, because we're on 119, do you have anything before we get off of here?
No.
Okay. Well, I think I'm actually going to go live today on my Facebook page to talk about this Corey DeAngelis
Oh yeah.
thing. I wrote a blog about it yesterday, and I think it's probably a good idea to have that on video because I think people don't like to read blogs anymore. So I'll just play, bedtime story and read the thing for people
Yeah.
because I think there's a lesson in it that's super, super important. And if we don't get the lesson out of it, we're in deeper trouble than we were before. So if you want to join me on my Facebook page at 1, and I may throw it up on a couple other channels because I'm going to do it through StreamYard. But you might tune in and see what I have to say about Corey DeAngelis. Is there anything else, Michael?
That's it, I think.
Okay. Well, don't forget, we're going to have Sandra Trewick talking about the transmission lines on Friday. Those of you who are watching, please make sure you get people to tune in on that, especially if you're in northern Oklahoma. And that, I think, even includes all the way down to Oklahoma County. So especially if you're in that area, get your friends to tune in. We have to have people hearing what's coming so we know how to deal with it and make it stop, because this is just, we're so far down the road of nonsense in this green energy nightmare.
Yeah.
And we've got to make it stop. So tune in. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We really do appreciate you being with us on this Wednesday morning, which is lovely. By the way, it's not going to get too much over 80 all week. Who is in the next 10 days? Yes. So happy about that. All right. Maybe it's fall. It could be first fall. We're not sure. It's Oklahoma, remember?
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will see you again on Friday morning at 9 a.m. on all these same channels, and we'll see you there. Thanks again.